Shalom Israel, Shalom. It's Brother Raya. I want to give all honor and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, Bahashema Mashiach, Malak Yahushua. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty brothers that go out there and labor on the highways and byways, making their body living sacrifice. In the rain, the tumults, the demons, the uprises, the uproars, they're out there standing 10 toes down for the name of the Lord. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty brothers that are not out there as of yet, but they're building themselves up, reading, praying, fasting, right, doing everything they could do to put themselves in a position to shake the hand and wake up the hopeful elect. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty Akwaf in this thing, sincerely reverencing their husbands, being teachers of good things to the children at home, being quiet, shamefaced, submissive, loving, steadfast, cooking, sewing, cleaning, doing all of the righteous acts of our foremothers on fire for the Lord. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty Akwaf that are not married as of yet, but they're building themselves up, reading, praying, fasting, being shamefaced, submissive, doing everything they could do to magnify the Most High in the ministry. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty children in this thing, right, abstaining from all lust, concupiscence, and peer pressure, standing 10 toes down for the name of the Lord. And last but not least, another strong shalom to the 12 tribes scattered abroad, reading, praying, fasting, making their body living sacrifice for the Most High God in the last days. Right, this is going to be an in-depth breakdown, right, on Mordecai, on Esther, on Haman, on the Persian Medo Empire and their governments, right, as well as the Babylonian government, right, as well as the Persian Medo government, as well as the Greek government, and as well as the Roman Empire and their governments. So we got to dive into these things in the last days, right? You have to be in tune with the spirit of the Most High. Right, when the Lord has Purim on the earth, or the Lord has destruction of Nicanor and or Passover, or whatever season the Most High has the spirit in, you have to tune in, man. You have to tap into the spirit of the Most High. Right, I'm about to share my screen, right? And let me know if you can see my screen. All right, give me a strong shalom if you can see the screen. Right? Give me a strong shalom if you can see the screen. Right? We're going to dive into it through the spirit. Right? Let me get this first quick precept through the spirit. All right, we're going to dive into it. Let's go. All right, let's get the mighty book, right, of Daniel. Let's go to the mighty book of Daniel. Let's get the mighty book of Daniel, chapter 9, and verse number 2. And it reads, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of years whereof the word of the Lord came unto Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolation of Jerusalem. So the Lord said through the prophet Daniel, I understood by what? By books. You have to read in the last days Daniel, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Mark, Matthew. You have to read the book Revelation. You have to dive into these books to understand the accounts of our forefathers. Right? It says, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books. That's why we have to be in these books in the last days. If you haven't read the additions to Esther, now it's time to dive in. If you haven't read Esther, now is the time to dive in through the spirit. Right? Let's go to the book of Daniel, right, the second chapter. This is Daniel, the second chapter, and I'm going to start at 2 and verse number 5. It says, the king answered and said unto the Chaldees, right, that the thing is gone from me, and if you will not make known unto me the dream with the interpretation thereof, you should be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. So when Nebuchadnezzar II had a dream, he let all of his servants know, and all of those chief men that he had, which were sorcerers, that if they can't break down his dream, they were going to get chopped down in two. It says, but if ye shall shew the dream and the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore shew me the dream and the interpretation thereof. So they had an opportunity to break down Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And when Nebuchadnezzar had that dream, he had a dream of a statue. And that statue, which was his peak, was an interpretation of the different kingdoms, right, that are on the earth. Right, jumping down to verse 18. Says that they would desire me mercies, right, of the God of heaven concerning this secret. So Daniel prayed to the Most High that he may get the revelation to break down Nebuchadnezzar's dream, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. So when Daniel started to pray to the Most High, what did the Most High do? The Most High answered Daniel right by the revelation. Now I want to dive into this real fast. Right, on Nebuchadnezzar's dream, right, he had a statue in his dream of gold, right, of silver, of bronze, of iron and clay. Now all of this is a similitude and or a parable on these different kingdoms that are going to be upon the earth. Right, let me get Daniel chapter 2, right, in verse number 31. And it reads, says, O thou, O king, sawest, and behold a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. And this image head was of fine gold. So the first image, right, of this dream, of this statue, was of gold. This gold represents the Babylonian Empire, which is also known as the lion. Now, when Nebuchadnezzar had this dream, the Lord was prophesying through the prophet Daniel, right, the revelations that are going to happen upon the earth through each of these empires till you get to the legs, to the feet, which represent the last of the kingdom, which the Lord will destroy. Now, let me kick this off. What is the world's most precious metal? The world's most precious metal is gold. So at the top of this statue read gold. Now, gold is what? It's your head. You think with your head. Gold is the most precious metal out of all of these metals mentioned. It's more precious than silver. It's more precious than bronze. It's more precious than iron. But yet gold is the weakest out of the silver. It's the weakest out of the bronze. And it's the weakest out of the iron. Each one of these, the empire, you understand, gets stronger and stronger. But yet their government gets weaker and weaker. Their principality, as far as their government, is getting weaker and weaker, by their armies and their authority to rule and conquer gets stronger and stronger. Now, their government was a monarchy, right? The Babylonian government. Now, I want to touch on that. Now, Babylon's government type, it was an absolute monarchy, right? So a monarchy means that they maintain complete control over their whole empire. They don't have a vice president. They don't have anybody under them where they have to consult. They don't have any counselors. They don't have any men that they have to go through, and or a government where they need to explain any of their matters. They have totality, complete control over the reign of their empire, right? I'm going to go to the book of Daniel, the 3rd chapter, right? Just to prove that and dive into this thing. Right, this is Daniel chapter 3, and I'm going to start at verse 1. So to understand, you understand all of these governments, you have to understand the empires that the governments had. This is Daniel chapter 3 and verse 1. Nebuchadnezzar, the king, made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura and the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges and the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the province to come to dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. So all of his chief men, the governors, the princes, the treasurers, right, the sheriffs, the counselors, the captains, the judges, they had to all come up before Nebuchadnezzar and show reverence, you understand, to the statue. Then the princes and the governors and the captains and the judges and the treasurers and the counselors and the sheriffs and all the rulers of the province were gathered unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up, and they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then an herald cried aloud, to you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, supba, psaltery, domeler, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. So there was nobody equal to Nebuchadnezzar. There was nobody that he had to counsel or get counsel from in his government and his rulership. Now that just goes to show you that Babylon had chief control on the left-hand side of a monarchy and control where nobody could stay Nebuchadnezzar's hand but the Most High. That's why he got so proud when you read the book of Daniel, the 4th chapter, that the Most High had to check him. The Most High had to drive him from men into the wilderness, right, to 7 times pass over, that he may understand that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men and give it to whomsoever he pleaseth. Right, let me get this quick precept. Let's go to the book of Judith. Right, let's get the mighty book of Judith. We want to dive into their governments. It's the book of Judith, chapter 2, and verse number 1. And it reads, it says, in the 18th year, and the 22nd day of the first month, there was talk in the house of Nebuchadnezzar, king of the Assyrians, right? Because he was king of the Assyrians before he was king of Babylon. It says that he should, as he had avenged himself on all the earth. So he called unto him all his officers and all his nobles and communicated with them his secret counsel. Meaning he was the one that gave order. It wasn't that they counseled together and they gave Nebuchadnezzar understanding. Now these generals, these captains, right, these prime ministers, these presidents, they hold council meetings where they discuss matters upon earth. Right, they have judicial branch. They have all of these branches of government, which makes their monarchy, which they seemingly don't have, weak. So they're not able to rule as they once did in the ancient world. It says, and concluded the afflicting of the whole earth out of his own mouth. And they decreed it to destroy all flesh that did not obey the commandment of his mouth. So everyone had to obey Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar's government was a what? Was a monarchy government. Everyone had to obey, right, which was classified as that gold. Gold is pure. Gold is the most precious metal. Even America is likened unto what? The daughter of Babylon. Right? Let me get this quick precept. Let's jump down to verse number 12. And it reads, for as I live and by the power of my kingdom, whatsoever I have spoken, that will I do by my hand. He's talking as if he's the Most High. He's talking as if nobody could stay his hand. Nebuchadnezzar II was proud, man. But when you have complete control and you're a heathen on the left-hand side, nothing's going to stop you, man. It says, for as I live and by the power of my kingdom, whatsoever I have spoken, that will I do by my hand. And take thou heed that thou transgresseth none of the commandments of thy Lord. So if you transgress one of Nebuchadnezzar's commandments, he'll kill you, man. He'll throw you in a furnace. He'll make an example out of you. He'll torture you. It says, but accomplish them fully as I had commanded thee, to defer not to do them. Right? Now I want to jump to this real fast. Now, how strong is gold compared to silver? Right? So you have silver is stronger than gold. So as you go in a statue, you find out that as you go down, the metal properties get stronger, but yet their government classified gets weaker and weaker. Now, when you go into it, right, Babylon was from 605 BC to 539 BC. The next rulers, right, were the what? Were the Persian-Medo, right, which is classified as silver. Now I want to dive into that real fast. Now silver is stronger than gold. What region did the Persian-Medos conquer? It says around the 11th century BC, they occupied the mountainous region of the northwestern Iranian and the northeastern, right, and eastern region of the Mesopotamia in the vicinity of Ecbatane, right, present-day Haman. And the constellation of Iran is believed to have conquered during the 8th century BC, right? So I want to dive into that. Their government was classified as theocracy, right? A theocracy government when you go into it. Right? And we're going to dive into that. It says, based on what now is Iran, the Persian-Medo combined an absolute monarchy with a decentralized administration, right, and widespread of local autonomy. All right, we're going to look up this word. Right, theocracy government is a divine guidance by officials who are regarded as divinely guided, right? And many theocracies government leaders are members of the clergy, and the state's legal system is based on regional, it's like your religious laws, right? Check that out. So it's divinely what? Guided, meaning it's not as strong as a monarchy, even though you still have a king. You have a king, which was Cyrus II or Cyrus the Great, but nevertheless, he still had men, you understand, that helped him rule his kingdom. It wasn't as if it was like Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom, right? Let me get this quick precept. Let's go to the mighty book of, let me see what I want to get. Let's go to Bel and the Dragon. This is Bel and the Dragon, chapter 1 and verse number 1. It says, and the king Astyages, right, which was over the Median Empire, was gathered to his fathers. And Cyrus of Persia received his kingdom, right? So Cyrus received the kingdom of Astyages, right? And they were joined together as the Persian-Medo Empire. And after he received his kingdom, right? Let me get this real fast. Now, this is in Wikipedia. At the time when Cyrus II became king of the Persians, there were 4 powerful states in the entire North, Near East: Media, Lydia, Babylon, and Egypt. Media and Babylon were entirely allies, but their relations began to decorrelate, leading both Babylonian and Median kings willing to accept refugees from each other's territory. So check that out, man. Right, so these were the powerful states that were in rulership. Right, let's go to the mighty book of Daniel, the 7th chapter. It's the mighty book of Daniel. Right, and we're going to start at verse number 4. Right, I'm going to start at 3. And 4 great beasts came out from the sea, diverse from another. And these beasts are likened unto kingdoms when you jump down to verse number 17. These great beasts, which are 4 kings, which will arise out of the earth. Right? So although they're classified as beasts, they're really kingdoms. The first was like a lion. Right? And the lion is strongest among beasts. That's Proverbs 30 and 30. Right? And gold is precious among metals. And the head thinks of all and is the first of all kingdoms, which is likened unto the Babylonian Empire. I said 605 to 539 BC, right, by Nebuchadnezzar II, which was a monarchy, and had eagle's wings, meaning what he conquered as he went. He flew through all of these different regions, conquering all, right, that he set his foot to. And I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted from the earth and was made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given unto it, right? Pride, arrogancy, right? And I behold another beast, second like unto a bear, and it raised up itself on one side. The raised up itself on one side is the two kingdoms of the Persian and the Medo kingdom. You had the Medes, you understand, that were conquered by the Persians, by Cyrus II. And it had three ribs in his mouth, right? You had Lydia, Babylon, and then you had Egypt. And the mouth of it were between the teeth of it. Because like you just read in history, when you diving into it, at that time, Cyrus II became king of the Persians. There were four powerful states in the entire Near East. Media, Lydia, which was conquered, Babylon, which was conquered, and Egypt. These are the three ribs in the mouth. And then you had Media, which was already conquered when you read Bel and the Dragon, the first chapter, 1 and 1. Going back to Daniel, it says, between its teeth of it, and they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. So arise, devour, conquer, take over, right? Destroy much flesh, right? Let's go to the book of Daniel, right? The 8th chapter. Let's go to Daniel, the 8th chapter. It's the mighty book of Daniel, chapter 8, and I'm going to start at verse number 3. It says, then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before a river a ram. Now this ram is likened to a nation when you jump to verse 20. This is verse 20. The ram which thou sawest having two horns are the kings of the Media and Persia. Right? So the two horns represent the two empires. Right? Going back up to verse number 3. It says, then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had two horns, right? The Media and the Persian Empire. And the two horns were higher, right? But one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. So you had one that conquered the other. And I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. So this is the Persian-Medo Empire waxing great, conquering. So you had the Median Empire was conquered by Cyrus II in 550 BC. Some scholars would say that's the beginning of the Medo-Persian reign. When they conquered Media to begin their kingdom was 550. But then you have conquering Egypt, right? Conquered by Cyrus' son Cambyses in 525 BC. Yet Lydia conquered by Cyrus in 547 BC. So you had these different empires, right, that were taken down, as this ram was pushing northward, westward, and all throughout conquering the earth. And as you see each of these empires, they start to grow more and more. Because you have Babylon, and Babylon was conquered, right? Then you have the Persian-Medo Empire, then that's conquered. Then you have the Greeks, and it just continues to expand. Their empires continue to grow, right? And they get more vast. They get more stronger, right? Let me go back to this. Right now, their government, like I said, is likened to that theocracy. Now, out of that, you have the men that help run that government, which are called Spirats. Now, the Spirats of the Persian, right, empire were governors who controlled the many regions known as Spirates that made up the vast kingdom. Meaning what? He needed help to run his kingdom. This vast kingdom that he had, when you read the additions to Esther or you read Esther, right, the first chapter, you read about him ruling, right, from India, right, we're going to get it. Let's go to the mighty book of Esther. This is Esther chapter 1 and verse number 1. It says, now it came to pass in the days of Artaxerxes, right? Artaxerxes, which is Artaxerxes. This is Artaxerxes, which reigned from India even unto Egypt, over 107 provinces. Now, if this was Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom, he would have ruled all of it by the stay of his hand. But this man, Artaxerxes, he had men that were under him that helped run each one of those provinces and those governments. So even though their military might got stronger as you go down, their government got weaker. And if your government's out of place, it doesn't matter how strong you are. Even the Lord tells you, better is a man that has wisdom, right, and prudence, paraphrasing greatly, right, that has a type of spirit to hold this spirit than a mighty man to take a whole city. What would you rather have, a mentality and wisdom and know how to run your house, or be the biggest, strongest man and everything is out of order? So it really doesn't matter how strong your government are, so like your army are, if your government's out of order, man, or it's not as strong. Now, how's the Lord going to run his government? Is he going to let Peter run it, man? James, John, are you going to run it? No, Yahushua is going to sit on the throne and he's going to forever be king. You're going to have men under him, right, that would take the understanding to bring it before the Lord, but it would never be ran the way these heathens run their kingdoms, right? And I want to dive into that. Let's go back to Esther. And it reads that in those days when the king Artaxerxes sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan the palace, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Mede, and the nobles of the princes, right, of the province being before him, right? So he made a great, you understand, feast of all of those men, right, that were under him. Now I want to dive to this real fast. Let's go to the mighty book of Esther, the 8th chapter. This is Esther, chapter 8, and I'm going to start at verse 7. It says, then the king Artaxerxes said unto Esther the queen, and to Mordecai the Jew, behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him that had hung upon the gallows, because he had laid his hand upon the Jews. Write ye also for the Jews, as it liketh you. What king does that, man? Now we understand that this is a hand from the Most High to grant mercy upon the Israelites. But what king says, write ye also for the Jews as it liketh you? Meaning it's like he's not even king, man. Right? Joe Biden, President Bush, Donald Trump, these men are just puppets, man. You have real men that are under him doing all the decrees, doing all of the rights, passing it through all of the government to bring it up for him, and he'll seal it. Just like the king did in the Persian or Medo Empire with the signet of his ring. It's not like it runs everything through him. Everything is going to run through the Most High by Hashem Yahushua. It's not anything that's going to be ran and then taking it up to the Most High, then the Most High gives the stamp. No, the Most High is the highest of the highest, man. It says, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring, for the writing which is written on the king's name and sealed with the king's ring may no man reverse. So it is a law in the Persian Medo Empire that once something is signed and sealed, that you can't reverse it. Meaning not even the king can reverse what he has spoken. It says, then that the king's scribes called at that time in the 3rd month, that is the month of Sivan, on the 3rd and 20th day thereof, that it was written according that Mordecai commanded the Jews and to the lieutenants and to the deputies and to the rulers of the province, which are from India unto Ethiopia, 127 provinces, and to every province according to the writing thereof, and unto every people after their language, and to the Jews according to their writing and according to their language. So they wrote everyone according to each one of their jurisdictions and all of their governments in the different languages, right, from India all the way to Ethiopia. It says, and he wrote in the king Artaxerxes' name and sealed it. So this king doesn't even have full strength of his own empire for somebody else to write something in your name with the king's ring and sent letters to post it on horseback, right? Meaning to go through all your different provinces. He wrote it up, sealed it with the king's ring and the king's name, and they sent it by horseback to all of their different empires. right, that were under them, on riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries. Check this out. Wherein the king granted the Jews were in every city to gather themselves together to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, to cause to perish all the power of the people, and the providence would assault them, both the little ones and women, and to take the spoil for them for a prey. Upon one day in all the provinces of King Artaxerxes, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Idar, and the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, and that the Jews should be ready against the day to avenge themselves on their enemies. Now that's all of the Most High. All praises to the Most High that he put in the spirit, these kings, right, to have behalf for us to rule and be able to destroy anybody that came up against us. But just thinking about it, if it wasn't the hand of the Most High upon us, what kind of king rules his government like that? What kind of king rules like that, man? It says, so the post rode upon the mules and camels, went out being hastened by the present upon the king's commandment, and the decree was given at Shushan the palace. Now I want to dive real fast in Daniel, right, the 6th chapter, just to go show you how weak the Persian-Medo government is and how it was ran, right? Let's go to Daniel chapter 6, and I'm going to start at verse number 5. Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against Daniel. So they were trying to overthrow Daniel because Daniel was a president, the first so-called black president. Except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. Then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king. So now the men that are under him are assembling to the king. It said thus unto him, King Darius live forever. Meaning they're presenting themselves before the king, they live forever. And all the presidents of the kingdom and the governors and the princes and the counselors and the captains have consulted together to establish a royal statute. What does that mean? That means everybody in his kingdom gathered together without him knowing to make a decree that he don't know about and press him out to sign it. What kind of kingdom is that, man? That's like all of your kids in your house. Yeah, that's what we gonna tell dad to do. Yeah, I think we should do this. Yeah. They all come together and then they bang on your door, man. Your father sleep. Your father wake up. What the hell is going on? And all your kids press you out. Yeah, make Kool-Aid today. Yeah, I want fried fish. Yeah, I want a big Willie, man. And they all push you up against the door, and you the father, you the king. And then you just grant it, whatever you say, whatever you say. That's how these kings ran their government, man. So they had a secret council among themselves to overthrow Daniel that the king didn't know about, right? And they brought it to the king. And to make a firm decree that whatsoever shall ask a repetition of any god or man of 30 days, saith the king, Salakia saith of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. That's crafty counsel. Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing that it may not Salakia, that it be not changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians, alter it not. Now, any king that has a government, even though they pressed him, he's supposed to be in trust with his government. Like, you're supposed to be in trust with your government. He didn't think that his government was going to overthrow him or have secret councils because they're all are the same people and or to run the same empire. So he's going to write and establish this decree. Right? Now I want to jump down. Let me see what I want to get to verse 14. It says, then the king, when he had heard these words, was sore displeased with himself and set in his heart on Daniel to deliver him. So once the king had wrote something and signed it through the hand of his crafty council of all of his men under him, right, his lieutenants and his governors, he couldn't reverse that which he signed. What kind of government is that? What kind of kings are these, man? So as we keep going through it, the kingdom starts to get less and less stronger. Even though you had Cyrus, you had Darius, you had Cambyses, and all of these different men that reigned, right? Nevertheless, their empires get weaker and weaker and get split before many men to be able to run it. Like when Alexander the Great, When he died, his empire was split between four that helped run it and continue on. Now it says, and he labored to the going down of the sun to deliver him. Meaning the king didn't have any own power of himself and his empire to deliver Daniel. And Darius wanted to deliver Daniel, right? But he was fasting and crying and weeping and laboring to the going down of the sun to deliver Daniel, because that was his favorite president. He was the first president out of all the presidents which they envy. And everybody envies Israel. Verse 15. Then these men assembled unto the king and said unto the king, know, O king, that the law of the Medes and the Persians is that no decree or statute which the king established may be changed. So they pressing them out. You can't even change it. Oh, know thou, O king, that the law of the Medes, right, is that no decree nor statute which the king established may be changed. Right? I mean, what the hell was you going to do at that point, man? They crafty counsel manipulated him to overthrow him. Not only did they do that, but they kind of put a little muscle into it too, man. When you go into the book of Bel and the Dragon. Let's go into the mighty book of Bel and the Dragon. Right? Right, this Bel and the Dragon, right, chapter 1, and I'm going to start at verse 28. And it reads, when they of Babylon heard that they took great indignation and conspired against the king. So they're conspiring against their own king, saying the king is become a Jew. Meaning, what are you doing liking Daniel so much? So this is like the other explanation and breakdown when you're reading, right, Esther, when you're diving into Daniel, when you're diving into Bel and the Dragon, it all is explaining itself. It says, oh, the king has become a Jew, and he hath destroyed Baal. He hath slain the dragon and put the priest to death. So they came to the king and said, deliver us Daniel. They didn't say that nice, man. They wouldn't dare come to Nebuchadnezzar like that, man. These kings wouldn't have never came to certain men that had a monarchy which ruled as their government got weaker like that. But as their government gets weaker, right, so are the kings getting weaker. So they said, deliver us Daniel. They didn't say that nice. Probably beating on the door, angry, pressing them out, put this arm on them, or else we would destroy thee and thy house. So the men under him said, look, you better do what we say, or we're going to destroy you, meaning we're going to kill you and everybody in your house. Now when the king saw that they pressed him sore, being constrained, he delivered Daniel unto them. Meaning he gave them up to what? To the lions then. Meaning these kings are getting pressed out in their own empire to be overthrown, right? Now, let me get this real quick, diving into it. Like I said, you had the Satrap, which was a government controlled by many regions that made up vast kingdoms. A Satrap was a governor or a province within the empire. And he had so many empires that he had to have all of these governors, right, over all of these regions. Like I said, from Lydia to Egypt, all the way from Jerusalem to Babylon, Nineveh, Ecbatane, Persia, the Persian Gulf, right, all of Mede, right, which they ruled, right? Let me get this real fast. Let's go back to the book of Daniel. Get this one quick point. Chapter 6. Verse 16. It says, then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, thy God, whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. I mean, he had no power in his own kingdom to help Daniel. He wanted to help Daniel. Now you have, which is strongest metal, bronze, which is brass, or silver, right? Additionally, because bronze metal, then silver. So as you with this dream, you had Nebuchadnezzar, the gold, you had the Persian Medo Empire, which was split as you go to the arms. Now each part of the body starts to split more and more. You have the head, which is compacted all together. Then you have the two arms, which represents the Medo, right, and the Persian Empire, right, which are split. And it just continues to get more and more divided till you get down to the feet. And then the toes. The toes are divided. The feet are divided. The legs are divided. Everything starts to get more and more divided as that government and that empire, even though the military might get stronger and stronger. Because iron is stronger than gold. Right? Like I said, in that Persian Empire, it's from 550, and or some scholars would say 559 to 530. Right now you have the bronze, which represents the belly and the thighs. Right? Let's go into it. Now you had the Greek Empire. Their government was a democracy, right, ruled by the citizens of a city. They had a monarchy ruled by an individual who had an inherited power, and an oligarchy, right, ruled by a select group of powerful, wealthy individuals. So their government was divided also. Even though they had Alexander the Great, they still had men, like I said, that ruled under them. Now that's from around 331 to 63 BC at the Battle of Gaugamela. The Battle of Gaugamela was devised with the defeat of Darius. The whole of the Persian Empire laid open to Alexander the Great. The rich cities of the territory yielded to him, and the young king was now mastered of all that once belonged to Darius. Never again would the Persian king challenge Alexander in the field, right? Meaning what? He was overtaken and overthrown, right? Now the Greek Empire, they ruled all the way from Macedonia, right, which is Greece, Thrace, Lydia, that was taken down, Egypt, taken down by the Persians. Whenever a kingdom takes down another kingdom, they inherit everything of that last kingdom, right? That's in First Esdras. Let me get that rule fast. First Esdras 1:55. And it reads, as for the house of the Lord, they burnt it and break down the walls of Jerusalem and set fire upon her towers. And as for her glorious things, they never cease till they have consumed and brought them all to naught. And the people that were not slain with the sword, he carried unto Babylon, right? The Babylonian Empire, who became servants to him and his children till the Persians' reign, to fulfill the word of the Lord spoken by the mouth of Jeremiah. Until the land had enjoyed her Sabbaths, her whole time of her desolation, she shall rest until her full term of 70 years. Right? That 70-year captivity of Babylon. Right? Until what? Until the Persians' reign. That's why when you read Ezra, right, the first chapter, right, is going to Cyrus coming into power. And the second chapter is all of those men listed coming back from the Babylonian exile. Let me get that real fast. All right, this is Ezra chapter 1 and verse number 1. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of the Persians, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled, of the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of the Persians, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and put it also in writing, saying, thus saith Cyrus, the king of Persia, the Lord God of heaven hath given me all the kingdoms of the earth. So like I said, it was a monarchy, but yet it was still broken down with his government. Yet he had power, but not complete. And he had charged me to build him an house at Jerusalem, which is in Judea. So he wrote this letter and sent all his men that were under him and its different regions this. Who is there among you of all this people? His God be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and build the house of the Lord God of Israel. He is God. It's like he is the God which is in Jerusalem, right? I want to get this real fast. Let's go to the mighty book of additions to Esther. Right? It's additions to Esther. Right? I want to start at the 13th chapter. Touching real back on the Persian Medo government. There's something more I wanted to get from that. This is addition to Esther chapter 13 and verse number 1. The copy of the letters was this. The great king Artaxerxes, right, Artaxerxes, right, writeth these things unto the princes, the governors that are under him from India unto Ethiopia, and in 170 and 20 provinces. So this is the mind state of this king as he's writing down, right, these letters to give to all of the men in the provinces that are under you. After that, I became Lord over many nations and had dominion over the whole world. Not lifted up were presumptuous of my authority, but carrying myself always with equity and mildness. And I propose to settle my subjects continually in a quiet life. What kind of peaceful king is this, man? I thought kings want to destroy one another. I thought kings want to rule. What was the spirit of Nebuchadnezzar, man? Nebuchadnezzar had all the earth frightened of him and scared of him when he ruled. When we rule, we're going to have this whole earth in order, man. We're not going to want to live an equity, mild, quiet life. No, we're going to hunt these heathens down. We're going to yank them up out of the cliffs, the rocks, underground bunkers. We're going to establish the earth in order. And if anybody comes up against the children of Israel, right, we're going to do what our king has told us we're going to do. We're going to break them into pieces, man. As a potter is broken into the vessel. Like when you read Revelation chapter 2 and verse 26. We're not going to rule this earth the way these soft kings, right, of these nations rule it, man. We're going to rule it with authority. Let me get this quick precept. Right? It's the book of Judith. I want to get this quick precept. Right, this is the book of Judith, chapter 2. Matter of fact, I'm on 3. This is Judith, chapter 3, and verse number 1. It says, so they sent ambassadors unto him to treat of peace, saying, behold, we be the servants of Nebuchadnezzar. When they heard Nebuchadnezzar was coming around, they sent peace treaties to bow down before him before he got there, because they knew the strength on the left-hand side that this wicked king was coming to do. That's the same spirit when we came in the ancient world, man. When they heard that we were coming, the whole inhabitants melted when you read the book of Joshua. Let me get this quick precept. This Joshua chapter 5 and verse number 1. And it came to pass when all the kings of the Amorites, which were on the side of Jordan westward, and all the kings of the Canaanites, which were by the sea, heard that the Lord had dried up the waters of Jordan, just like they're going to hear that the Lord saved the children of Israel. The Lord destroyed Babylon. The Lord was coming, skipping upon mountains like you read about in the book of Song of Solomon, the 2nd chapter, destroying all of these nations. It's as if the Lord's name has to be magnified all over from the days of old. From the days of old, you had your pharaohs, you had your Agags. Your Agag was another ancient term for the kings of Amalek, just like you have a pharaoh. You have all your presidents, right, associated with America, your different presidents. These different prime ministers, Agags, pharaohs, presidents, right, all of these different kings, they're going to have to hear all over again that Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is the king, man. Because they sitting up thinking their government is the king. Their fighter jets are the kings. Their helicopters are kings. They're starting to forget that it's the Most High over the earth. So when they heard that the Lord had dried up the waters of Jordan from before the children of Israel, until we pass over. Check this out. It says, until we passed over Jordan, passed over, that their heart melted, neither was their spirit in them anymore because of the children of Israel. So when they heard of the warlike acts that our fathers have done and the Most High have done, they started to melt. They started to not have a spirit that was in them anymore. Just like when the Lord delivered the children of Israel, when you read the book of Exodus, the 15th chapter. What's Exodus 15 and 15? Let me start at 14. The people shall hear and be afraid. Sorrow shall take hold on the inhabitants of the Philistines. Then the dukes of Edom shall be amazed. The mighty men of Moab shall tremble, shall take hold upon them, and all the inhabitants of Canaan shall melt away. That's what fear is. Fear is how the Most High runs the earth. You have to fear a king. If you don't fear a king, what is it to you, man? Look how Nathan came to David. He had to break down that he committed adultery in an in-depth parable in 2 Samuel, the 12th chapter. He didn't just come up before the king. Even the king Artaxerxes, Esther just couldn't come up to her. You had to have an appointment to come before the king. And even nowadays in this weak empire, America, you can't just go to the White House, pull up to the king, pull up to the president and start speaking to him. It says, fear and dread shall fall upon them by the greatness of thine arm. They shall be as still as a stone till thy people pass over, O Yahweh, to the people pass over which thou hast purchased. Check that out, man. So the Lord has what? Fear upon the earth. Now this king, he wanted to carry his life with equity, mildness, and proposed to settle my subjects continually in a quiet life, and making my kingdom peaceable and open for passage. That sounds off. What king wants to have his kingdom open for passage? You got all type of creeps and demons and different nations traveling through unannounced. But you're so peaceable, you want to open up your borders for any nation to truck through. It says, to the uttermost coasts, to revenue peace, which is desired of all men. And that's a fairy tale life. That's not even a proper mentality, man. Because people rise up at you at night. When Joshua went to war, right, with Ali and these different inhabitants, they were around their borders at nighttime. And their borders were secluded and blocked off. They had to wait till the opportune time at night to trouble in to kill them. Imagine if your borders were open. Imagine if the gates, right? Now, our gates are going to always be open. That's spiritual. But we're going to have angels, authorities, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, a government, right? We're going to beat all of their spears into plunger hooks and the dung, like it says in the book of Micah. Right, let me get that quick precept real fast before I make this point. So we're going to be able to have our gates open. We're going to be able to have peace on earth. Because we're going to take all of the military might that these different kings have and these armies have, and we're going to destroy them. So they're not going to be able to have anything to come up against us in the kingdom. This is Micah chapter 5. Right? So I can bear with me. It's Micah chapter 2. And I'm going to start at verse. This whole thing is fire. So I can bear with me. I'm going to start at 2. And many nations shall come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord and to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among the people and rebuke nations afar off. That's in the kingdom. The Lord going to be rebuking nations afar off, man. And they shall beat their swords into what? Plowshares. That's not physical, meaning all of the swords. You're going to have one day you beat them all up. That's your military tanks, your missiles, your submarines, all of your physical swords, your knives, your daggers, your M16s, your AK-47s, all the things that are able to help you to win battle and to conquer a nation. When we're in rulership, we're going to beat them to plowshares. We're going to beat them into dust and their spears into plunge hooks, meaning your spear is sharp. We're going to beat it so bad, it's like a plunge hook. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither should they learn war anymore. So the only way from Yahweh's eyes to rule a kingdom is to break down that other kingdom, take their military might from them, and rule them with force. You can't have a government where you want peace, like this fool, this king, right? Let me get this other quick precept. Let's go to the book of additions to Esther 16, and I'm gonna start at verse 10. I'm gonna start at 1, Salaki. It says, the great king Artaxerxes unto his princes, governors, and 170 provinces from India unto Ethiopia, unto all our faithful subjects, greetings. Many the more often they are honored with great bounty of their gracious princes, the more proud they are waxing. So he's trying to teach these men under him how to be a king and what spirit to move in. How the more honorable a man becomes in his empire and his kingdom and his rulership, the more proud he begins to wax, which is true to a certain extent, because the more powerful Nebuchadnezzar was, the more proud he became. It says, and to endower, not to hurt our subjects only, but not being able to bear abundance, do take in hand to practice also against those that do them good. It says, and to endower, to hurt not our subjects. But we want war. We want bloodshed, man. So this king's mind wasn't really right when you go into the way he ran his government. As is the king, so are his officers. Right? That's Satrap chapter 10 and verse 1. Whatever manner of man that is in the spirit he's going to be in, that's the spirit of everybody else, right, in that kingdom. Right? Let me get this real fast. Going into the Greek, like I said, they reign all the way, they stretch from Media, Babylon, Persia, right, all the way in Macedonia, Egypt, right, Partha. Now I want to dive into Haman. Now Haman or Haman, right, also known as Haman the Agagite. Like I said, an Agagite is a name of what they would call the kings of the Amalekites. Just like you would have a pharaoh, or you have a president, or whatever the case may be. That's the title, an Agagite, where those men were descendants of. It says Haman was a descendant of Agag. It's like an Agite, a king of the Amalekites. And then when you dive into Agag, it says Agag is a northwestern Semitic name or title applied to a biblical king. It has been subject that Agag was the dynasty name of kings of Amalek. So he was a pure-blooded Edomite, just as Pharaoh is used in the dynastic name of ancient Egyptians. So he's an Agagite, but he was also a Macedonian. A Macedonian meaning he spoils and comes out of Greece, right, that region. Now Haman, right, the LLX calls Haman a Macedonian. Like I said, Macedonian is a place and region within Greece. So a man may be called a Bethlehemite, just like when you read the book of 1 Samuel, the 16th chapter. That's what Jesse was called. So you have his specific region, but he also is a Judite. Let me get this quick precept. This is the book of 1 Samuel chapter 16. And I'm going to start at verse, let me see what I want. Verse 1. And the king, Salakia, and the Lord said unto Samuel, how long wilt thou mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill thy horn with oil and go, and I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehemite. Now, he's from the inhabitants, right, of Bethlehem, Bethlehemite, right, but he's also a Judite, right, from that region. For I have provided me a king among his sons. Just like when you go to the book of Micah. Micah was called the Morshite. All right, let me get this quick precept. This is Micah chapter 1 and verse 1. The word of the Lord that came to Micah, the Morshite, in the days of Jotham, Asa, Hezekiah, kings of Judah, which he saw concerning Samaria and Jerusalem. Right, so these kings are also take on the places that they derive from, as well as it being their nationality. So an Amalekite coming out of the Macedonian, right, Greece Empire. Right, so you had Haman, and Haman was very crafty. He was sneaky. He was conniving. Haman's whole purpose was to overthrow, right, Artaxerxes, or Xerxes rather, empire, so that he may reign in his stead. Right, let me get that real fast. Let's go to Additions to Esther, chapter 16, and verse number 10. For Haman, a Macedonian, the son of Hammedatha, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood, and far distant from our goodness, and as a stranger received us. Now, why was Haman set up to rule, or to help rather, under Xerxes? Why was this man even set up in the first place? Why was a man that has strange blood from the Persians was even in their government to even help them? Right, let's get it. Let's go to the book of Additions to Esther, the 13th chapter. This is Additions to Esther, chapter 13, and I'm going to start at verse number 3. It says, now when I had asked my counselors how this might be brought to pass. So Haman was one of the chief counselors, right, among 1,000. He was wise. He was knowledgeable. He had wisdom on the left-hand side to be able to rule and help establish a kingdom. Every kingdom man needs, right, of old, of these heathens that had many counselors. Even of our empire, you know, David had a fifth of. So you have many counselors that help you rule and establish things according to how they should be ran. It says, now when I had asked my counselors how this might be brought to pass, Haman, that excelled in wisdom among us and was approved of his constant goodwill and steadfast fidelity, and had the honor of the second place in the kingdom. So the only reason Haman even has such a high position isn't because he was a white man. It isn't because, you know, he knew how to count. Why? Because he was a very wise counselor. I mean, look at Joseph. He can interpret dreams. Look how Pharaoh made him second in command. Look at Mordecai, how he saved the king's life and excelled in wisdom and prophecy. See how the king had him next to him. Look at all of these men like Daniel, the first black president. He can interpret dreams. He was wise. So had that man, you know, had him right before him, right, Darius. So when you go through these kings, Haman was nothing more likened to the men that I said before, to have close by his wisdom. Declared unto us that in all nations throughout the world was scattered a certain malicious people. So the first thing he's trying to counsel to manipulate in the kingdom is trying to overthrow Israel. Now his hate and perpetual hatred for the children of Israel is creeping into his counseling. This has nothing to do with anything. We never rose up against the Persian Medo Empire. They try to overthrow him. We never did anything to where this is even needed to be able to counsel. This is the craftiness, seduction, and witchcraft and sorcery of the so-called white man. It says, declared unto us that in all nations throughout the world, there was scattered a certain malicious people that had laws contrary to all nations, and continued despise the commandment of kings, so that the vaunting of our kingdoms honorably intended by us cannot go forward. He's saying, you know what, we can't even run our kingdom and establish it till we get rid of these people, man. These are a malicious people that we cannot run our kingdom with. And any king that has a council of that authority is going to take that serious. You know, he's going to kind of, you know, consider those things. says, seeing then we have understanding that this people alone is continually in opposition unto all men, differing in strange manner of their laws, and evil affected our state, working all mischief they can, that our kingdom may not be firmly established. Therefore have we commanded that all they that sign in writing unto you by Haman, who is ordained over the affairs, is next unto us, shall all with their wives and children be utterly destroyed by the sword of their enemies without all mercy and piety for the 14th day of the 12th month of Adar this present year. So you wanted to wipe out all of Israel. But his counsel wasn't counsel that was correct and upright. His counsel was by what? His own heart, his own emotions. Because Mordecai didn't want to bow down to him. Mordecai said he was a Jew. Let me get that real fast. Let's go to Esther. It's Esther chapter 3 and verse number 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. And even when he commands something, remembering the law of the Persian Medo-Persian Empire, you can't go back on that. So everybody had year by year whatever the king had commanded to do so, man. Right? It says, but Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, why transgresseth thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, meaning that was pressing him out, bow down to the king, bow down to Haman, bow down to the so-called white man. They were pressing him over and over, day by day. I'm led to believe it was important men coming up to him, man. These men were dressed in king's apparel, standing by the gate. I mean, anybody could be intimidated or overthrown by that. And he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand. For he had told them that he was a Jew. Meaning he had told them that I don't bow down to anybody but the Most High. The Jews don't reverence or give any type of strength unto an idol or other gods, man. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. Through his full of wrath started to be wicked counsels, overthrown, craftiness, deceits, overthrows. Well, let me go back to additions to Esther, the 16th chapter. This is additions to Esther, chapter 16, in verse number 11. Going into Haman. It says, had so far forth ordained the favor that he shewed toward every nation, as that he was called our father, and was continually honored of all men as the next person unto the king. But he, not bearing his great dignity, went about to deprive us of our kingdom and life. And he wanted to kill all of the Jews, having by manifold and cunning deceits. So what does this white man try to do? Who's speaking? Artaxerxes, man. Ahasuerus. He's the one saying this, and he knows the craftiness that Haman tried to do. Because he's the one that gave him the decree for him to be hung on those gallows. Him and his 10 sons. It says, having by manifold and cunning deceits sought of us the destruction as well of Mordecai, who saved our life and continually procured us good, as also blameless Esther, partaker of our kingdom, with her old nation. For by these means he thought, finding us destitute of friends, and have to translate the kingdom of the Persians to the Macedonians. That was his whole mindset. To creep in unaware, become a mighty counselor, come up in power, right? That's like a spirit of an agent. That's the spirit of a snake, a rat, just to sneak in a hole somewhere, to be warm, And somehow when everybody sleep, come out and eat, man. Or a snake to slide through the camouflage and right at the Pacific time, strike. It says, by these means he thought, finding us destitute of friends. Meaning he was the one counseling you shouldn't listen to him. No, you shouldn't do that. Yeah, I'm right under you, king. I got your back. To have translated the kingdom. So his whole mindset was to take the Persian Empire and take it to the Macedonians. Right? Alexander the Great, to the Greeks. Right? Let me get that real fast. Let's go to the book of First Maccabees, chapter 1 and verse 1. It says, and it happened after that Alexander, the son of Philip, the Macedonian, right? This is in Greece, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead. So this wasn't even something of just Haman. That was the whole spirit of the whole nation, right? Of the Macedonians, right? This couldn't have been just Haman's idea if Haman tried to do it. Alexander the Great rose up to do it, the son of Philip. This had to be a conspiracy among these Macedonians to take down the Persian Medes, right? Just even now you have Israel. We're conspiring and thinking by reading, keeping the laws, being on fire, having faith in Yahushua, how we're going to take down the United States, the daughter of Babylon. Just like these nations, they conspire, they come up with regions, plans. Don't think that right now as we speak, the Russians aren't thinking how to take down America. That these nations aren't game planning, writing up how to take down one another. It says, and had made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth. Any king wants to slay other kings because they want to be the only king. But there's only one true king, right? Let me get this real fast. Let me go back to Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Right? This is Daniel chapter 2 and verse 32. The image of his head was fine gold, right? The Babylonians. His breast and arms of silver, right? Which are two arms, the separation of the Persian and Medes, which gets weaker, right? With government, but stronger with army and military might. His belly and his thighs of brass, right? Going into what? We just dived into it. The Greeks. Now, brass is stronger than silver. You have a brass sword and you take it to a silver sword, that silver sword may get chopped in two, man. Just like you take that silver sword to that gold sword, and that gold sword could get chopped in two. Now diving into, right, these Greeks, these Macedonians, get this real fast. How their empire was ran. Get this quick precept. Let's go to the mighty book. Let me see what I want. First Maccabees chapter 3. Matter of fact, I'm going to read on from verse 1. I want to get this real fast. And went through the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations. Right? He conquered many nations. And so much that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. Right? Just like the kings before him. And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him. Right? Whenever you take down a king and or a kingdom, right, you have tributaries to that kingdom that they have to pay you gifts. Just like in the kingdom, these nations are going to have to come up and bring the forces of the Gentiles into the gates of Jerusalem. Meaning what? All of their chief oil, right, their chief gold, silver, minerals, and things that their different countries yield, they're going to have to bring that up to Jerusalem, as well as all of the things that they've stolen. Let me get this quick precept. It's the book of Isaiah, chapter 60, right? And verse number 11. I'm going to start at 10. And the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, meaning the other nations are going to build up Israel. And their king shall minister unto thee. When it says minister, the word minister in the Hebrew means serve. Like you may see in the Gospels, women ministered unto Yahushua. That isn't talking about shaking the hand or going into the scriptures. Minister means serve. So their kings are going to serve us. For when my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I, Shalaki, have mercy upon thee. Therefore thy gates shall be open continually. Why should the gates of Israel be open continually? We just went into it. We're going to beat down all of these different nations' military might, their strength, their power, and anything that they have so that we can dwell in peace. And also on top of that, in each place where we dwell in Israel, on top of our heads are going to be angels. Right? Let me get that in Isaiah chapter 4. Wherever we dwell in Israel, in our habitations, there are going to be angels and chariots right above our heads for protection. This is Isaiah chapter 4. Get the 4th chapter. And I'm going to start at verse number 5. And the Lord will create upon every dwelling place of Mount Zion and upon her assemblies a cloud and smoke by day, and the shining of a flaming fire by night. For upon all the glory shall be a defense. So the Lord said, look, in the kingdom, upon every dwelling place, no matter where you are, the Lord is going to have an angel and a chariot right above your head following you everywhere you go. You're not ever going to be by yourself in the kingdom. Huh? You're not by yourself now. But in the kingdom, you're going to see these chariots. You're going to be able to see these spiritual things. Right now, we're in these mortal bodies. Right now, we're subject to payments. We're going through the curses. We're subject to hope. We're subject to faith. Right? In the day where we have measured up and fulfilled our hope and faith in the Lord, to where we can bodily eyes see the things that we have been reading and praying for, the Lord is going to have upon every dwelling place of Mount Zion and upon our assemblies a cloud. The cloud isn't talking about a normal cloud that you see outside. There will be nothing grand or magnificent or new about the kingdom if we could see clouds now. The cloud is talking about a chariot and smoke by day and a shining of a flaming fire by night. That flaming fire is talking about those chariots. And upon all the glory, check that out, shall be a defense. It says, and there shall be a tabernacle for a shadow in the daytime from the heat, and a place of refuge for a covert for a storm from the rain. That's not physical. I mean, when it gets too hot, we kind of go into this one cloud under this big old thing, and it's going to nicely keep us nice and cool. And then when it starts raining outside, it get too drenched and it just get too wet. Right there, we're going to have a refuge for a cover of the storm. No, everything that we have, the Lord is going to make sure that our government, right, our angels, our military is strong. So that's why our gates are going to be continuously open, because nothing is going to happen to us. Right? The Lord even tell you that the lion is going to eat straw. Right? Nothing is going to come up. We're going to be able to walk amongst lions, right? These beasts and these different creatures that once were set against us to devour us. Therefore, thy gates shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day nor night, that men, check this out, that men may bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles, and that their kings may be brought. So different kings, forces, gifts, all of these things are going to be continuously brought before us in the kingdom. Right? It even tells you that, right, in the book of Psalms. Right? Let me get this quick precept. Right? This is the mighty book of Psalms. Right? Chapter 72. And I'm going to start at verse 10. Now, this is talking about Solomon, but in the spirit, it's talking about Yahushua. They that dwell in the wilderness, and this is going to be the second wilderness, right? And they that dwell in the wilderness shall bow before him, and his enemies shall look up to dust, right? And when the Lord destroys our enemies in the second wilderness, it's parabolically saying that they're going to lick up the dust. And they're going to lick up the dust in the kingdom. They're going to bow before us. The kings of Tarshish and of the isles shall bring presents. The kings of Sheba and Sheba shall offer gifts. Yeah, all kings shall fall down before him. All kings didn't fall down before Solomon. That's not talking about Solomon. If you don't believe that regeneration, the spirit of Solomon and or Adam, Isaac, Zerubbabel, if you don't understand the spirit that the Lord has within these men and things that come to pass in the scriptures, the foretell and shadow against Yahweh, then you have to pray for that understanding. It says, let me prove that real fast. Because in Solomon's dominion and his kingdom, it tells you where it reached from. Let's go from 1 Kings, the 4th chapter. And let's start at verse 20. It says, Judah and Israel were many as the sand which is by the sea, in multitude, eating, drinking, and making merry. Because in Solomon's kingdom he had peace. And Solomon reigned over all kingdoms from the river unto the land of the Philistines. It's not all kings of the earth. It tells you from the river, right, unto the land of the Philistines and unto the border of Egypt, they brought presents. That's a Pacific dominion to another dominion. It's not all the kings of the earth. So when these presents shall be brought and all kings fall down, everybody's going to offer up gifts and tributaries. Like as you read that these nations, as in Alexander, as in Xerxes, as in Nebuchadnezzar, that's what kings do. That's why when Hezekiah was getting pressed out by Tiglath-Pileser III, he didn't want to give tributaries. He said, "To hell with that, man." That's the whole reason why the Syrians even came up against us, the Assyrians, because Hezekiah didn't want to offer up those tributaries. So whenever you're captives to another nation, just like now us being captives, what do? We have to pay taxes. We have to give whatever it is that we own, right? It even says in the book of Nehemiah that they have dominion over our bodies. Let me get that real fast. You getting shots. You have to go to the doctor. They tell your children what to do. I mean, we're literally in this place the same as these kings that have reigned before, right? Let me get this quick precept. This is the book of Nehemiah, chapter 9, right? And verse number 34. Neither have our king, our princes, our priests, nor our fathers kept thy law, nor hearkened unto the commandment that thy testimonies wherewith thou didst testify against them. For they have not served thee in their kingdom, and in thy great goodness that thou gavest them, and in the large and fat land which thou givest before them, neither turn they from their wicked works. Check this out. Behold, we are servants this day, and for the land that thou givest unto our fathers to eat the fruit thereof, and the good thereof, behold, we are servants in it. Meaning this whole land really belongs to us. But we have to give the fruit of our land to these heathens. And it yieldeth much increase unto the kings whom thou hast set over us. So Alexander, all of these men of tributaries, getting all of these fats and fruits, that's going to be the same way in the kingdom because of our sins. Also, they have dominion over our bodies. That's in the Bible, man. So when they want you to take shots, they press you out for your child to take the vitamin K, and you better do this when he's born, and he has to be doing this, and this is what he has to do, and he has to take this, he has to go to this school, he has to sign up to this establishment. They tell your body what to do. White man tell you when to wake up in the morning, when you're allowed to go to sleep, what you can eat, what shots you need. So they even have dominion over your body, right? Reading on from 1 Maccabees 1, right? Verse 5 all the way down. It says this, and after these things he fell sick, right? Alexander, they said he had syphilis when you go into the history of it, and or sick homosexual disease, right? Through his gay lover, right? When you go into the history, right? He used to put on that leper print, right? From the top and be naked all the way down. And he said he used to get off by taking down kingdoms and ruling and taking down different kings and or ruling in an army that he liked to wrestle with men. Wherefore he called his servants such as were honorable. This is the point. Verse 6. Wherefore he called his servants such as were honorable and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them. What does it mean he parted his kingdom? Each one of these, like I said, is being parted and broken down from their governments. From a monarchy all the way down to branches of government, Salaki, to branches of government, right? It says, parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So as he parted his kingdom, I want to go to the book of Daniel, the 11th chapter. This is Daniel, chapter 11. And I'm going to start at verse number 3. And a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. This is Alexander the Great. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven. So even their governments is going to be broken down, and it keeps getting weaker and weaker. And not to his prosperity, nor according to his dominion, which he ruled, right? So it's getting weaker and weaker. Right? You have Ptolemy, right? Lycomachus, Seleucus, and Cassander, right? And not to his prosperity according to his dominion, which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for the others beside those. Check that out. So it continues to get weaker and weaker through his government. I'm going to get 1 Maccabees chapter 3 to dive more into that. It's 1 Maccabees chapter 3 and verse 32. And it reads, so he left Laches, a noble man and one of the blood royal, to oversee the affairs of the king. Now that wasn't like that in the ancient world with Nebuchadnezzar or men like that ruled before. These governments get weaker and weaker. Now you're leaving a man, right, that's a blood royal to oversee the affairs of the king, from the river of Euphrates unto the borders of Egypt. What makes a man a king is to have dominion over all, not to partly leave this affairs to oversee this portion and that portion and this portion and that portion. It says, and to bring up his son Antiochus until he came again. Moreover, he delivered unto him the half of his forces and the elephants, and gave him charge over all things that he would have done, as also concerning them that dwelt in Judea and Jerusalem. You can get overmastered like that, man. Right? Just like Darius did. When all of those men came up against him and pressed him out and said, we'll kill you if you don't deliver Daniel unto the lion's den. It says, to wit, that we had sent an army against them to destroy and to root out the strength of Israel and the remnant of Jerusalem, and to take away the memorial from that place. All right. Let me get another quick precept. Let's go to the mighty book of 1 Maccabees 3. Let me see what I want. Bear with me. First Maccabees chapter 10. First Maccabees chapter 10 in verse, I'm going to start at 23. What have we done that Alexander have penitent us in making enmity with the Jews to strengthen himself? I also will write unto them words of encouragement and promise them dignities and gifts that I may have their aid. He sent him to therefore to this effect, King Demetrius, unto the people of the Jews send greetings. Whereas ye have kept covenants with us and continued in our friendship, not joining yourselves with our enemies, we have heard thereof and are glad. Right? So you have the Greeks, right, trying to join with Israel to strengthen up an army. You have the Romans trying to make a league with Israel. You have these different leagues trying to be formed, right, as these governments get weaker and weaker, just like in America. America's trying to league, you understand, with all of these other different nations, right, NATO, to strengthen them up because they know that they're weaker. As they continue to go down, their government gets weaker and weaker. But yet their alliances and their military might get stronger and stronger through all of their confederacies and all of the things that they're forming together. Let me get that in Obadiah. Let me get that real fast. But it's prophesied that they will all turn on one another. This is Obadiah chapter 1, and I'm going to start at verse number 7. All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee. Meaning all the Confederates that were once together, that would join with you, are going to turn on you. That's exactly what's going to happen and happening as we speak in the last days, right? Let me get this real fast. Let's go back to Daniel. All right, this is Daniel chapter 2 and verse 33. His legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Now the iron represents what? The Roman Empire, right? The Roman Empire, and you have part clay, which is going into America and is going to the common market. Right, let me get this real fast. Let's go to the book of Daniel, chapter. Get this real fast. Let's go to the mighty book of Daniel, right, chapter 2, and I'm going to start at verse 1. It's the book of Daniel, chapter 2, and verse number 41. It says, and whereas thou sawest the feet and toes. Now you have, I'm going to go back to this image so I can bear with me. Now this image, like I said, you have the brass, which is continuously getting more and more split, because this kingdom was split between the four winds. To it get even more divided till you get to what? The iron, which is the Roman Empire. 63 BC on out, right down to the feet, right, which represent America, and the toes, right, like I said, is represent the European Union, which are all completely getting more and more divided in their government, but yet getting stronger and stronger. Now check this out. Is iron stronger than bronze? Numerous techniques and experiments were applied to these to alloy and still prove stronger than bronze. Check that out. So the strongest of them all is what? Is the Roman Empire. They're likened it to what in Daniel? The iron teeth. Let's go to it. Let's go to the mighty book of Daniel, chapter 7, and verse number 5. Right? I'm going to jump straight down to the point. I'm going to jump to 7. It says this. After this, I saw in the night vision, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns. Check that out. Going into what? Coming out of America, that little horn. And I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. So you have the 10 horns, and then you have the little horn. The little horn is America, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. Behold, in this horn there were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. So as you go into it, that's going into the iron, the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was the strongest of them all. Let me get this quick precept in the book of 2nd Esdras. All right. This 2nd Esdras, so I can bear with me. This 2nd Esdras, chapter 11, I'm going to start at 30, 36. Let's start at 39. It says, art thou it that remainest of the four beasts, whom I made to reign in my world, that the end of their times might be wrought, it's like it might be through them. And the fourth came and overcame all the beasts that were past, and had power over the world with great fearfulness, and over the world compassed the earth with much wicked oppression, and so long times dwelt he upon the earth with deceit. And the earth has thou not judged with truth. As for afflicted the meek, thou hast hurt the peaceable, thou hast loved the liars, and destroyed the dwellings of them that have brought forth fruit, and hast cast down the walls of such as did thee no harm. But that's what that beast does, which is the strongest of those iron teeth. Takes down all of those other empires and kingdoms, right through the Roman conquest. Therefore is thy wonderful dealings come up unto the highest, and thy pride unto the mighty. The highest also have looked upon the proud times. The Lord calls the time that the white man rules the earth proud times. And as behold, they are ended, and his abominations are fulfilled. So they have to reach up to a peak. And therefore appeared no more thou eagle, right, which represents the so-called white man, nor thy terrible wings, nor thy wicked feathers, nor thy malicious heads, nor thy hurtful claws, nor thy vain body. Right? You had the 12 emperors, right? And then you have all of the different heads, right, which is the last ruling empires on the earth, and the claws, the vicious-like mentality of the so-called white man, and the vain body going into his whole empire. That all the earth might be refreshed and may return, being delivered from thy violence, and that she may hope for the judgment and mercy of him that made her. Right? Let me get this quick precept. Let's go to the mighty book of Daniel, chapter 2, and verse number 41. It says, and whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of the potter's clay. Why is it part clay and part iron? Because the Roman Empire is strong, but yet is weak. Going into the government, going into the last days, and it's mixing and coming out of America. That's why it's also weak. America's weak. America right now is on its last leg. China's doing away with the currency, right? You have a whole sedition going on. You have every nation rising up against America. America isn't strong as it used to be. Nobody has faith in Biden. Nobody has faith in the government. This place is a joke, right? It's inflation. This thing is just going down and getting weaker and weaker by the day. Right, let me get this real fast. It's Revelation chapter 17, verse 8. The beast that thou sawest was and is not. Right? John saw the beast, which was Rome. It was at the time, but it is not because it came out of power. Right? It says, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. The bottomless pit they're ascending out of, right, is Europe, and going to perdition, meaning destruction. And they that dwell on earth shall wonder, whose names are not written in the book of life. Meaning wonder how this empire is yet still on the earth, but yet came out of rulership. Then, Slakia, we're not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. When they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is, right, which is America. That's why that iron is part clay. It's called miry clay. Miry clay is a mud. It's a thick, nasty mud. Let me get this real fast. Psalm chapter 40. Get this real fast. Right, this is what miry clay is. Mud, dirt. So it's strong, but yet it's weak. It's falling away. It's collapsing. It's going under. It's soaking down. It's not strong. Right? It's Daniel, right? Chapter 2 and verse 41 from the top again. And whereas thou saw the feet and the toes, right? The feet represent America. The legs, which are apart, represent the Roman Empire. The feet represent America. The toes represent the European Union. Part of potter clay and part of iron, right? They're mixed with the Roman Empire and of America and are getting weaker. The kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in the strength of it the iron. Meaning what? The kingdom and the government is going to be divided. They're going to turn on one another. They're not going to be strong. They're going to collapse. But yet the strength of that kingdom, which is America, is going to have the strength of the iron. Meaning, like the Lord said, who could make war with the beast? Talking about the Roman Empire, which came back again as America. For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. Let me get that real fast in that precept I just pulled. It's the book of Psalms, chapter 40, and verse number 2. He brought me up also out of a horrible pit. A pit is a landmass. Out of the miry clay. Miry clay is America. And set my feet upon a rock, talking about Yahushua, and establish my goings. Meaning what? The Lord is going to beam you out of captivity and slavery under the daughter of Babylon. And he hath put a new song in my heart. That's the song of the 144,000. Even praise unto our God. Many shall see it and fear and shall trust in the Lord. So many shall see the salvation, the works of the Most High, and believe. Blessed is that man that maketh the Lord his trust, and respecteth not the proud, nor such as turn aside to lies. Meaning, all praise to the Most High, and blessed be that man that trusteth in the Most High for his deliverance out of captivity and slavery, that puts us forward trust in the Most High, that respecteth not the proud, which is the so-called white man, nor such as turn aside to lies. Meaning them that fall out the truth, them that are of the 2/3, them that are coons, them that are of the other nations, that trust in any other lie of this world. It says, and as the toes of the feet were part iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. So this place is going downward, partly broken, right? It says, and whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another. Meaning these nations, like I said, are going to join themselves with a confederacy. They're going to have Elam, Moab, Ammonite, right? They're going to have the Arabs. Everyone's going to be mixed into America. America isn't just the so-called white man. Everybody's mixing themselves with the seed of men in this miry clay. It's a cesspool of nations. It says, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. So even though they cleave one to another with these Pharisees, NATO, this, and they're mixing themselves with the seed of men to be strong as iron, they're still going to be mixed and fall down as miry clay. And in the days of these kings, shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom, right, which is Israel, which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people. And that's how we're going to rule our kingdom. We're not going to leave it to other people. Like these other kings before, right, of these heathens have left their governments to be ruled by other nations. Right? What is Hadasaurus doing, giving his kingdom and his trust into the hands of somebody not even a stranger? He's a stranger of Persian blood, man. To overthrow it and manipulate it or overcome it like that. It says, but it shall be break in pieces and shall consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. For as much as thou sawest that the stone that was cut out of the mountain, right? The mountain without hands. The stone is Yahushua, cut out of the mountain. The mountain is a nation. Without hands, that it break in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold. Meaning all of these empires, because America is likened to what? The daughter of Babylon, meaning ancient Babylon was the strongest of all of these kingdoms, right? Of gold. But then you had the silver, it was likened to the Persian Medo Empire, the clay, the brass, the Greeks, all the way to the iron. America takes on all of these different empires, even Egypt, right? Even Tyre and Zidon. The great God have made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain and the interpretation thereof sure. Check that out, man. Right? So let me get this quick precept. Let me get Revelation chapter 17. And I'm going to start at verse number 11. It says, and the beast that was and is not, even he is of the eighth, right? So you have what? You have 7 kings. Out of these 7 kings you have that are not of the 7th, which of the 8th, which is America, and is of the 7th. It's of the 7th because it's of the Roman Empire. Out of those 7 kings, French, Spain, Germany, Russia, Greeks, Romans, and Great Britain. The 7th that is talking about what? Rome. That's why it's the 8th is of the 7th, and going to perdition, meaning judgment and destruction. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings. So this is how the 8th of the beast, which is America, is divided. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet. Check this out. But receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So the same way I went from the very beginning of how each one of these governments are getting weaker and weaker and weaker, how they're being ran, even the strongest kingdom, which is the 8th, which is America, the glory of all kingdoms, is the weakest with its government and still looked at in the eyes of the Most High as clay. How it's being ran, the military structure, and how it's being developed, it's being received power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So even as the beast has his kingdom, you still have the 10 toes, right? The 10 horns, the common market, and or the European Union that's reigning 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind. They're running things somewhat seemingly together and shall give their power and strength unto the beast, meaning collectively creating and making decisions. Right? How many governments does America have? The territory administrative structure of the United States is formed by 3 distinctive levels of government. You don't need 3 distinctive levels of government. It says, let me get this quick precept real fast. In the book of Nehemiah. This is Nehemiah, right? Chapter 7, and verse number 10. I likewise and my brethren and my servants might exact of them money and corn. I pray you let us leave off this usury and restore, I pray you, to them even this day their lands, their vineyards, their olive yards, and their houses, also in the 100th part of the money, and the corn and the wine and the oil, right, and the exact of them. So Nehemiah is the governor, and he's letting these men know, look, you're going off by exacting usury on your brethren. And he's setting his nation in order. Jumping down to verse 15. But the former governors that had been before me were chargeable unto the people, and had taken of them bread, wine, beside 40 shekels of silver, yet even of their servants bear ruled over the people. But so did not I, because of the fear of God. So when he was governor, wasn't split up in betwixt between 1,000 men. You have a king in Israel. You have a prince in Israel. But all authority goes to the king. You don't have a million governors. You don't have everything break down. No, every and all positions of preeminence goes to the king, man. How did Bathsheba go before David? And that was her husband, man. She bowed and showed obeisance before him. That fear needs to be when you run any empire. Right, going back to this real fast. You have the United States federal or national government. The states, each governed by their own states of government, and local governments. The legislative, right, executive, and judicial. Right, so that's how they run in their constitution and their Congress. But let me bring out this closing precept. So we're diving into the different governments of each one of these empires. We dived into how weak the Persian Medo Empire was. We went into the Persian revolt, right? We went into Astyages going down, right, which was related to Cyrus the Great II, right? How he took down, right, the Medes, right, by the Persians and ruled. Right, we went into each one of these governments, how they were establishing their different armies, and how Haman crept in by craftiness, right, and overtook the Macedonians, right? And you have to get into the spirit of Purim. And not just read Purim and just know that you got to give thanks to the Most High and or give portions, because that's a very, very important part of Purim. But you have to understand the history. History is extremely important. Without history, you have no substance in what you're reading. You don't want to read everything on a very, very skeleton-like view. You want to dive deep because this is your history. We're not getting history in USCS Grant, man. We're not in the 7th grade. We're not getting rocked to sleep in geography class. This is your history about your fathers and the secret, wicked plots, kings, mischief, and things that overtook our kingdom, and how we need to establish and take it back. The more you know about a snake that is venomous, it can have camouflage, right? The way it produces, where it likes to hide, the more you can take down that snake as you hunt it and to be prepared. The less you know about that snake, the more you're going to continuously be bit and tricked and overcome by their crafty works. That's why we study. That's what lions do, man. Lions don't just eat all day. They stalk and they hunt and they watch and they learn. Hey, the Lord said, learn from the beast of the field, man, paraphrasing greatly. So let me get this quick precept. This is the mighty book of Revelation, chapter 3 and verse number 2. Be watchful and strengthen the things which remain that are ready to die. For I have not found thy works perfect before God. Meaning continue to read, strengthen yourself up on things that you're lacking, so that you can continue to grow and not fall away slowly in this thing. You want to keep your candle lit and burning at all times. It says, remember therefore how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come on thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon thee. So continue to watch, stay in prophecy, continue to hit that refresh button, and continue to stay girded in the last days, that the Most High not take your garment and your shame be showed in the last days. So continue to stay on fire. Most High willing. This was edifying through the Spirit. I want to give all honor and glory to the Most High. Yahweh, Ba'ashem Mashiach, Umalak Yahushua. Shalom.